I shouldn't be here. Not like this. People are crying. Some are whispering my name like it's a ghost story. There's a huge photo of me at the front, candles glowing around it. My mom's holding on to my little brother, sobbing like I mattered, like she didn't call me a disgrace the night she threw me out. 3 years ago, I stood on the same church steps in a white dress, 18, full of hope, full of dreams. Tonight, I'm standing here, at my own funeral. I take one step inside. Nobody notices me yet, but they will, because I remember everything. The night they found that photo, how my mom yanked it from my journal and screamed like I'd broken her heart, how she looked at me like I was nothing. "You're no longer our daughter," she said. And then, like I meant nothing, she took my keys, my money, my name, they locked the door. And just like that, I didn't exist anymore. But now I'm back, and I have something to say. If you want to know what happened next, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss. You won't believe what's coming. I stood outside our front door in the rain for what felt like hours. I kept thinking, maybe if I just waited long enough, my mom would cool down. Maybe she'd change her mind. Maybe Dad would come and open the door and say this was all just a bad dream. But the light stayed off. My clothes were soaked. My suitcase, what little I could grab, was getting heavier with every second. I knocked again, softer this time. "Mom?" I whispered. "Please." Nothing. I remember putting my ear to the wooden door, trying to hear voices inside. I heard the TV playing. I heard forks clinking on plates. They were eating dinner like I didn't exist. What hurt the most wasn't even that they kicked me out. It was how easy it was for them. Like a switch flipped, and I was gone from their world. Just because of one photo, one secret they didn't like. "Go," my mom had said, her voice cold. "Take your shame with you." I walked away that night with $13 in my pocket. My phone? Shut off. Bank account? Frozen. My bus card didn't even work anymore. It's like they planned everything, like they meant to erase me. I went to Jade's house, my best friend. I tapped on her window, the special knock we always did. The bedroom light turned on. And then nothing. The curtain moved slightly. 1 second. Then she turned the light off again. She saw me, and she chose not to open the window. That moment shocked me more than anything else. My parents disowning me was one thing. But Jade? She knew everything about me. She promised forever friends. And yet, just like that, she disappeared too. I walked that night. Miles. I didn't know where I was going. My shoes were soaked. My feet hurt. Nobody looked at me. Nobody cared why an 18-year-old girl was dragging a small suitcase in the dark at midnight, eyes red, shivering alone. I found shelter at a bus stop. Slept curled up on the bench. Everything felt wrong. My hands were numb. My stomach kept growling. I thought, maybe in the morning Mom will call. Maybe she'll call me back and say it was all just anger talking. She didn't. The next morning came and went. I went to school hoping to speak to someone, to explain, to finish class, to feel normal. But I couldn't get in. My student ID was blocked. When I asked the lady at the front desk, she frowned and shook her head. "Your parents removed authorization," she said. She looked at me like I was a stranger. That word again. Stranger. By sunset, it was official. I had nowhere to go. No phone, no home, no one. Just silence and shame, and the sound of my stomach, angry that I hadn't eaten all day. That night, I saw a woman toss her sandwich wrapper in the trash outside a convenience store. I waited for her to walk away. Then, I reached into the bin, not for garbage, but for something I never ever imagined I'd be desperate enough to do. I pulled out the half-eaten sandwich, and for the first time in my life, I ate what the world had already thrown away. They say you can get used to anything. I didn't believe that. until about the third night I spent sleeping behind the green dumpster behind Murphy's Market. It smelled like old fruit and bleach. I used my jacket as a blanket and my suitcase as a pillow. I used to panic when I heard footsteps nearby, but after a while I just stopped caring. Some nights it rained, and I didn't even bother moving. There was nowhere dry to go. The first 2 weeks were survival. Mornings were the worst. I'd wake up stiff and freezing, with my hair stuck to my face, smelling like trash. I'd sneak into public bathrooms just to wash my face and change clothes. People avoided looking at me. I don't blame them. I probably wouldn't look at me either. I walked for hours each day looking for work. Any work. But no one would hire me. "You need ID," they'd say. "Do you have an address? A phone number?" I had none of that. Once I almost got a job handing out flyers, but the guy said something was off about me. Like being hungry made you suspicious. After that, I stopped asking. One day I stayed in the library the whole afternoon. It was warm, quiet, safe. I watched people come in and out, students doing homework with their parents, little kids giggling over books I grew up reading. For a moment, I felt normal again. I even let myself smile when I found a copy of a textbook I once used in school. I didn't take it with me. I didn't want to steal. Instead, I left with nothing but the warmth of being invisible. But things got worse after that. Way worse. A man started following me one night. I didn't notice at first, until I turned into a street corner I never used before. And he was still behind me. When I crossed the road to the other side, so did he. When I ducked behind a fence, I heard his footsteps stop, and then get faster. My heart was pounding so loud I thought I'd scream. I ran. I didn't look back. Suddenly, I felt someone grab my arm. I screamed. But it wasn't him. It was someone else. A tall man in a gray coat. He stepped between me and the guy chasing me and said, "Back away." The man turned and walked into the night without a word. I was shaking so hard I nearly collapsed. The tall man didn't say much. He just looked at me for a long time with eyes that weren't cruel or judgmental. He handed me a business card. On it, in black letters, was a name I'd never heard before. Mr. Brown. "Call that number," he said quietly, "when you're ready." And just like that, he disappeared up the street. I stood there in the dark for a long time, holding that card like it was made of gold. I didn't know why he helped me, or what he wanted. But for the first time in weeks, I finally had something to hold on to. I stared at the card for days before I dared to use it. Mr. Brown. No title, no address, just a number and a name that felt more like a warning than an invitation. I kept it hidden inside my sock. Sometimes I took it out just to look at it, to remind myself that someone still saw me, that I wasn't entirely invisible. It took me almost a week to work up the courage. I used a public phone at a gas station. My fingers trembled as I dialed. I expected it to ring, maybe go to voicemail, but it didn't. It clicked once, and then I heard a calm voice like he'd been waiting. "Arya, I was wondering when you'd call." I didn't tell him my name. He gave me an address and said, "Come before dark, and come alone." That part scared me, but not more than sleeping behind dumpsters or eating half-eaten food. So I went. The building looked abandoned from the outside. Peeling brick, one flickering light above a rusted door. I hesitated, then knocked. A woman opened the door. Around 50, stern face, soft eyes. She handed me a towel and quietly said, "Room 6, shower's on your left." Room, shower. The words felt like magic. I hadn't heard them in so long. That night I slept on an actual bed. Pillows, blankets, 4 full walls. I cried myself to sleep that night, not from pain, but from relief. The next morning, things got stranger. The building wasn't a homeless shelter, at least not in the way people think. It was quiet, clean, and structured. Every person had a job, even if it was small. Some cooked, some cleaned, some fixed broken lights, some taught. And every one of them? People like me. Forgotten, runaways, discards, lost ones. Mr. Brown didn't show up for days, but his rules were everywhere. 2 meals a day, devices off by 9, no stealing, no secrets. And most of all, if you stay, you must contribute. I didn't know how to help. I had nothing. I sat alone in the dining room one night, staring into a bowl of rice, when an older man sat across from me. He had thick glasses and a gentle smile. "You ever wanted to learn something useful?" he asked. I nodded. "Medical," he said. "We can start with bandaging wounds." I looked at him, confused. "You're a doctor?" "Used to be," he said, "before the world threw me away, too." So I started learning. Little things. Cuts, burns, cleaning tools. It was strange how my brain started waking back up. Like I'd been underwater for months and suddenly found air. These weren't just random people. They were survivors teaching other survivors how to rebuild. I still didn't know what Mr. Brown's goal was. But somehow, in this broken, secret place, I had a purpose again. And yet, every night before I slept, I still stared at the ceiling thinking about Noah. My little brother. Did he miss me? Did he think I was dead? Or worse, did he believe I deserved what happened? Because even in my new world, the questions from the old one still followed me like shadows. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw my family. Since the night my name disappeared from every part of their life. I had learned how to survive since then. How to clean wounds, take blood pressure, and keep a steady hand during an emergency. The people at Mr. Brown's house no longer looked like strangers. They looked like something even closer than family. The kind that didn't leave when you broke their rules. Even though I lived quietly under the radar, I still watched the news sometimes just to feel connected to the outside world. That's when I saw it. Breaking. Teenage girl found in river identified as Aria Reynolds. My heart felt like it stopped. Me. They said they found a girl matching my age. Same hair, same height, no ID, just a book bag with school notebooks inside. But someone had placed an old school ID in the pocket. My old school ID. Where did they get that? I didn't understand. The news anchor said, "The Reynolds family is devastated after confirmation that the remains are linked to their missing daughter, Aria, last seen 3 years ago." I couldn't breathe. There was video footage next. The camera zoomed in on my mother. Tears. Flowers. A framed photo of me smiling at 16. People gathered around her like she was the world's most heartbroken mother. I listened closely, and then I heard her say it. "I just wish I could hold her one more time. I wish we could have told her how sorry we were." I wanted to scream. Sorry? She had years to say that. She left me outside in the rain like an animal, like I was a shame to her name. And now she stood there in front of cameras crying over my fake death? Worse, she was being praised for it. I turned off the TV and stared at the blank screen. Why now? I kept wondering. Why would she lie and claim a body as mine? Did she truly miss me? Or did she just want the attention? The sympathy? Later that night, Mr. Brown appeared for the first time in weeks. He had a newspaper tucked under his arm. He placed it on the table, open to the page that read, "Local family prepares funeral for long-lost daughter." He looked at me. "I imagine you have thoughts," he said. I nodded. "They think I'm dead." He didn't even flinch. "They do." My voice trembled. "Should I go back?" He paused. "Depends what you want, Aria. Revenge, forgiveness, or truth?" I didn't answer him. I couldn't. He placed something on the table, a small envelope with a plane ticket inside. "Church address is on the back," he added. "The funeral's in 2 days." Then he walked away like he hadn't just shaken my whole world. I stared at the ticket for a long time. Not because I was scared of going, but because I wasn't scared at all. Something inside me had gone quiet. Calm. Like the part of me that used to beg for their love had finally died. And the girl they were about to bury? She wasn't me anymore. I used to wonder what my funeral would look like. Would anyone cry? Would they say kind things about me? Would they even remember who I really was? I never imagined I'd find out. The sky was gray that morning. Not a single bird. Just clouds, heavy with silence. I walked up the front steps of the same church where I had once sung in the children's choir. I remembered that old piano inside. I wondered if it still worked. People were already inside. I could hear music playing softly. Some sad hymn. The kind that always made you feel something even before you knew what the song was about. I pulled my hoodie over my head and stepped inside. And there I was. A giant photo of me at 16, smiling like I still believed the world was safe. People were sitting in pews, wiping tears, whispering prayers. Some I recognized. Neighbors, my old math teacher, a girl who used to copy my homework. And then there was my family. My father sat still, his eyes empty. And my mother, she looked shattered. She clutched a white rose in one hand and a note in the other. Her shoulders shook with sobs. She cried like she had lost everything. And maybe she had. But I was still alive. And now I was ready to speak. I walked slowly down the center aisle. The hush that fell across the room was instant. One by one, faces turned. Confused, shocked, terrified. Someone gasped. Another dropped their cup. Linda Reynolds, the woman who birthed me, lifted her head, and Such stopped breathing for a second. The rose slipped from her hand. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She stood, frozen, as if seeing a ghost. And maybe she did. Because the girl they thought they buried wasn't the one in their photo. I walked up to the altar, stepped around the large black and white picture of me, and turned to face the crowd. My voice came out calm. Too calm. "Why are you all crying?" I asked. "Why are you mourning someone you threw away?" I let the silence hold their guilt. My little brother Noah was at the edge of the row. Our eyes met. He didn't look scared, just stunned, like he'd been holding on to hope all this time. I could feel my mother trembling, but I didn't turn to her yet. This moment wasn't about punishment. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about truth. And I had carried mine in silence for 3 long, freezing, forgotten years. "I didn't die in a river," I said. "I died when my own home stopped being mine, when my name, my existence, became inconvenient." Someone in the back whispered my name. Aria. Yes, I was back. Not for their version of closure, but for not Miner. And the truth? It was more than what they were ready for. I could feel everyone looking at me like I didn't belong in that room, like I was a ghost who'd broken some sacred rule by walking among the living. But ghosts don't bleed. And I had, for years. My mother finally stood up, her face pale. Her mouth opened, but her voice cracked. "Aria, when we thought you were dead?" I said before she could finish. "That's what you told yourselves. Easier than admitting what really happened." She looked away. Even now, she couldn't face what she'd done. I turned to the crowd. The pastor looked like he was waiting to jump in, maybe to take control. But this wasn't his moment. It was mine. "You want to know why I was kicked out?" I asked. Why I disappeared instead of going to college. Why my parents erased me from their lives. No one spoke. So I answered for them. My mother found out I was applying for scholarships without telling her. She'd hidden my acceptance letters. She didn't want me going to school, said it was a waste of money. People shifted in their seats. She found the letter I wrote to a women's shelter, not because I was abused, but because I felt trapped, controlled. I wanted out. I glanced down at the white rose near her feet. "But that's not the whole truth, is it, Mom?" Linda looked up, her eyes wide. She knew. "The photo," I continued, "the one you found in my journal. It wasn't just that I applied to college on my own. It was of me and someone you hated. I pulled it from my pocket. Creased, faded. A picture of me and Jackie, my first real friend, maybe more, smiling under a tree after school. Her arm around my shoulder. Pure, innocent. She wasn't even my girlfriend, I whispered. We weren't anything official, just friends. But it was enough to make you throw me out like I was dirty. Like love, which you claim to know, only counts when it looks like yours. Gasps. Someone stood and walked out. My father had said nothing all this time. Eyes on the floor, hands stiff. Finally, I looked at him. Why didn't you stop her? I asked. Why didn't you say anything that night? He didn't answer. Cowards never do. Then I met Noah's eyes. He looked like he wanted to cry. I hoped he wouldn't. He needed to stay strong, like I had. I didn't come back to make anyone cry, I said. I came back because I deserved to hear them say it. I looked at my mother. I deserved an apology. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she whispered, I'm sorry. But it wasn't enough. Not for the nights I shivered, for the meals I skipped, for the birthdays I spent alone wondering if I mattered. Still, I nodded. Not because I forgave her yet, but because I was finished carrying it. I walked past the photo, past the framed lies and pitied tears, out the doors of the church and into the sun. A new light, a new life. And somewhere deep inside, I smiled. Because I wasn't dead. I was finally alive.